During Thursday night's meeting, the Board of Selectmen discussed whether they would officially vote in a letter of non-opposition to Hope Heal Health and their potential marijuana cultivation facility in town.
I'd like to revisit our previous discussion in regards to medical marijuana. And I think it's important to offer a few points as why it's critical to discuss now rather than after the November 8th election. I really become increasingly more concerned that any lack of action on the letter of support prior to November 8th could be harmful to any of our future business considerations that we might have in regard to this. And I'm just going to add that with the vague and unknown elements that the state has put in front of us with how this is going to progress after November 8th in regards to medical marijuana, there's a lot of contradictory information that's really rampant out there in regards to this. And with our dire revenue needs, I think that carefully approaching this matter in a way that leaves all of our opportunities available is really the very best course of action that we could take. And
We promised the lady that was here we were going to have.
and
a
and
public
I
hearing.
have
And now we're going to go back on it.
no,
And I
we are
have
not.
spoken to that lady.
Well, how are we going to have a public hearing?
We are going to have a hearing.
After we vote? That's sort of disingenuous.
That's not disingenuous because they're gonna, if a medical marijuana dispensary wants to come into this town, whether we say yes or no, whether we say yes, they're still gonna need to apply for a license for the Board of Health. And so after the election, we're going to know whether it is recreational marijuana is going to be legalized, but we're also going to be able to have that discussion on medical marijuana as it stands, whichever way that vote goes.
Obviously, the important question is the host community agreement, which we've already signed. And so I think the question is, regardless of a letter of support, the state's going to make a decision if question 4 passes. Either we are going to recognize host community agreements that existed before the election, or we're not going to. And either way, that's going to affect us because we currently, I signed it last week or 2 weeks ago, whenever it was. We currently have a host community agreement. And so I think, the vote on the letter of support, whether it happens now or after the election, that should have no effect on the host community agreement. They're two separate issues. And personally, I think we made absolutely the right choice, as you mentioned, making sure we have something in place in writing before the election with the host community agreement, having it before the election. But I think when it comes to the letter of support, if we've already said we're going to have a public hearing and vote afterwards, I don't see why that would have any detrimental effect on this project.
I have to disagree with you on this point because with the thing that I saw from the attorney's Castle Booze today, they don't even know what's going to happen after the election, whether they're going to accept any more. If the state's not going to accept a letter of support from the town, then HHH can't even go to them and apply for the license. And then they can't come to a North Attleboro and apply. But if it's in place before the election, we have a shot of keeping it in place because the recreational question on the last summary, and the last paragraph of the summary says this will not impact the medical marijuana. But the state has to come up with new regulations for recreation that could impact the medical marijuana. And I'm just trying to play it safe.
Mr. Williams, you're saying that you think after this, if it passes, that the state will stop accepting letters?
That's what I've been told may happen.
So I don't, because the issue is if you look at currently the number of medical marijuana dispensaries that the state has accepted letters from in the state, it's a very small number.
Right, and they're already in operation.
Which is why I would think that the state's going to accept more. I mean, if you look at like Colorado, they say they have more medical marijuana dispensaries
Well, I
than
wish,
coffee shops.
Mr.
So
Chair, I wish I had your crystal ball,
small amount.
because my crystal ball is not saying that, so.
which is exactly
I want
the
to
issue.
try and look at things optimistic here and try and get things in place, so if anything happens, the state cannot, through a ballot question, cannot void a agreement, signed agreement, or a contract unless it is stipulated in question 4 saying anything going on will now null and void everything that's in the past,
Which is
not in there.
We'll have to agree that we need to sign the letter of support. We have worked very hard on this whole process of making sure that Hope Healed Health comes into our town we have a wonderful host agreement. We worked really hard on that host agreement. And I look at it as we're signing a lease, but we're giving you a lease, but we're not gonna let you take the apartment. And it kind of looks like that, because we're saying, we agree with everything you have to say, and these are our rules and our procedures that we want you to go by, and Hope Heal Health says, that's great, that's wonderful, we worked on it, we made it perfect, and now we're saying, no, we don't want you to come in. If we have this in place with our host agreement, with our letter of support, we did it before the election. And yes, this is what we have, this is in place. I feel that it's the best way to be able to safeguard, let Hope Heal Health come in there, and also to be able to give us the opportunity, because I would really hate to be able to lose a business that is willing to do so much for our town and to bring the revenue in.
It's not about marijuana to me, it's about, when the people were here, we said we were gonna have a public hearing before we voted. So marijuana doesn't mean anything to me. I've never used it, and I would never take it away from anybody that needs it for medical reasons. But I'm not gonna go back on my word to the townspeople.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion, we move the question.
And a roll call vote as requested, Mr. Bellum?
I'm asking for a roll call vote on the question. I withdraw my request to move the question if you're gonna take it to a vote.
And no further discussion. Mr. Lennox?
Yes.
Mr. Lennox votes yes. Mr. Rhino?
No.
Mr. Rhino votes no. Mr. Bellum?
Yes.
Mr. Bellum votes yes. Ms. Alonso?
Yes.
Ms. Alonso votes yes. I, Patrick Reynolds, vote no. That is 3-2, Mr. Gallagher.